Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of the Just Teens television program, right here in the beautiful, should I say, Treasure Island area in Florida at the West Wind Resorts, where we're having an opportunity to talk to our special guest, Mr. Victor Woods, the autobiography that is out and making a storm across America on the bookshelves and bookstores all around the country. His autobiography, A Breed Apart. We want to bring this gentleman to you so you can see what has set him apart and how his life will mean something to you from this day forward. Thanks so much for joining us. Victor, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm delighted.
You know, I want to talk to you a little bit, because we could just eat up a lot of time talking about things of the past.
Certainly.
And I want to bring the more important things to the forefront. And I know that you have been working on a movie deal.
Yes.
You have also been working on some other things about your life. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your life, and then we'll go back a little bit.
Sure. Well, I think that the first place to start is with my parents. I had a father that attended college and a mother that attended college, and so I was the firstborn son, and they had high expectations for me, and I had a lot of energy. I was actually kicked out of Montessori school because they said I was disruptive, and that kind of was an ongoing theme throughout elementary, junior high, and high school. And I think, like many young people today, the school system really isn't equipped to really deal or proficient at dealing with children who just don't fit in, and I didn't really kind of fit in well. And I ended up in high school falling into a life of crime. I ran away from home, and then spent some time in foster care, and then began this life of crime. And it came to me because I was in a situation where I didn't have any money. So it began, very innocently. I was stealing food from grocery stores and stealing bicycles, and then it escalated to burglary and armed robbery, which landed me in the state prison system. And after that, college is usually a place where people go to learn things. Prison becomes a college for criminal activity. Mm-hmm. And so I went in with a degree in armed robbery, but came out with a degree in counterfeiting and drugs, and was released from prison. Like many people are released from prison in the United States now. And we have the recidivism rate where people go in and go back again. And so I ended up in federal prison on a $40 million credit card conspiracy. And so I was making credit cards, ended up in federal prison. The United States Secret Service offered me 5 years probation. They said, we'll give you probation if you tell on everyone. And I chose not to do that. I really didn't want, the easiest way for me to explain that is I never wanted anyone to say to my daughter, your daddy put my daddy in prison. And so I went and did my time, like a lot of older people that may be watching. I remember I was a little boy, and there was a movie called Beretta. And I remember my father used to say, don't do the crime if you can't do the time, son. And I always remember that. So I did my time, but while I was incarcerated the second time in federal prison, I started to take a look at myself. I started to take a look at where I was, how I'd gotten there, and how I could turn this around. And I realized that I had some abilities to do some different things. And so I decided that I wanted to be a speaker. After doing some speaking in prison as an inmate, I decided that was my passion. I enjoyed sharing information with people. I had a story to tell, and I began to embark on that when I was released.
Let's go back then for a moment, since you kind of put us there, and this is a good segue. As I remember about your memoirs, you have so many dynamic things that you've done on your resume.
Yes.
Post-prison. Mm-hmm. But when this kind of jumped off in your life, you were 19 years old.
Yes.
Okay. And so tell us a little bit about that, because the show, even though it's targeted toward teens, this show hits everyone that's in the life of a teenager. So that means law enforcement, guardians, wards of the state, parents, teachers, teachers' aides. People want to know what is going on in the mind of a 19-year-old, and you came from a good family structure. I don't hear anything that would say you're headed for mayhem. Tell us about that.
Well, I think that, yes, I did have a good family structure in that I had two parents in the home, but every parent is new at being a parent. And my parents, as much as they tried, really didn't know what to do with me. In other words, if you look at the fact that here's a kid that started and created and manufactured his own newspaper in high school, even though I was a DNF student. Here's a kid that, although I did a reprehensible thing, doing an armed robbery and starting an armed robbery ring, I did do it with walkie-talkies, police scanners, and binoculars. I was casing places for 2 weeks before I robbed those places. And so obviously I had a tremendous amount of intellect. As a matter of fact, when I was in high school, I was a DNF student, the only black kid in my school. But I started my own newspaper in high school. They had to bring the police in to figure out
who wrote the newspaper. I knew I could write. So I went and made my own book.